He lost $88 billion and his company before Tuesday afternoon. By 9 in the morning, the stock was in freefall. By 11, the banks had frozen 2 of his primary accounts. By 1 in the afternoon, his own board had called an emergency session without him, in his building, on a floor with his name on the elevator panel. By 6 in the evening, his attorney had resigned. By 7, 3 of his closest investors had stopped returning calls. By 8, his driver sent a text that said simply, "I won't be available tomorrow." All these with no explanation, no apology. Just a man who had done the math and found Marcus Cole on the wrong side of it. By midnight, Marcus was sitting on the floor of his penthouse. Not on the couch, not in a chair. On the floor, back against the kitchen island, legs stretched out in front of him, still in the suit he had put on 18 hours ago when the world made sense. He picked up his phone. He had 412 contacts. He called 9 of them. 3 answered. And by the time the last one finished making his excuse, Marcus set the phone down on the tile and sat in the kind of quiet that doesn't feel like silence. It feels like an answer. He thought he knew what loss was. He had studied it, prepared for it, built contingencies around it his entire career. He had war-gamed every financial scenario, every hostile move, every market collapse. He had never once planned for this, for the specific, unbothered speed at which people leave when the reason they stayed disappears. He sat there a long time, and then someone knocked on his door. 2 knocks, soft, patient. Marcus didn't move at first. Nobody knew he was here. He had told no one. He had come to this apartment, the one he kept off the books, the one that wasn't in any filing or directory, because he needed to be somewhere that no camera, no journalist, no board member could find him. He walked to the door slowly. He opened it, and the breath left his body. Zara Bennett was standing in the hallway. She was wearing a deep red dress, elegant and unhurried, and her braids were pinned up, damp at the edges from the rain outside. Her coat was wet at the shoulders. She was holding nothing. No umbrella, no bag, just herself, standing there in the low light of the hallway, looking at him the way she always had, like she was reading something written underneath his face. She took in the suit, the floor-creased shirt, the exhaustion he hadn't admitted to himself yet. She said, quietly, "You look like you've been trying to disappear." Marcus's voice came out smaller than he expected. "What are you doing here, Zara?" She tilted her head, just slightly, "Making sure you don't." Before we go any further, if this is your first time here, this is Donito Stories, where every story is built to stay with you long after the last word. Do a quick favor right now. Hit subscribe, give this video a like, and share it with someone who needs to hear a story about the kind of love that doesn't calculate the cost before it shows up. Now stay till the end, because by the end of this story, you will understand exactly why she came back. Marcus Cole did not grow up with money. He grew up with the memory of not having it, which is a different and more powerful thing. It lives in the body differently. It doesn't fade when the bank account changes. His mother had worked 2 jobs for 11 years and never once complained about it in front of him. She saved quietly, sacrificed quietly, and one morning when Marcus was 26 years old and sitting across from her at her kitchen table with a business plan and no investors, she slid a piece of paper across to him without a word. It was a refinancing agreement. She had remortgaged the house. He tried to say something. She held up one hand. "I didn't do it so you could thank me," she said. "I did it so you'd never forget what it cost." He never forgot. That weight small and permanent, sat behind every decision he ever made. It sharpened him early, stripped away anything that felt like comfort or complacency, and replaced it with a discipline that other people sometimes mistook for coldness. It wasn't coldness, it was focused, but he understood why people couldn't tell the difference. By 31, he had his first acquisition. By 35, 6 more. By 38, Marcus Cole was the kind of man other men mentioned in rooms he hadn't walked into yet. He built Cole Meridian into something that moved markets. He was precise. He was relentless. He was, by almost every professional measure, extraordinary. And by almost every personal measure, completely alone. Not visibly. Marcus was never without people. Advisors, investors, partners, a full orbit of people who needed something from him and offered something in return. He understood people the way a chess player understands the board. Useful, positional, nothing permanent. Except once. Zara Bennett had come into his life 2 years before all of this, and she had done it without trying to, which was the first thing that confused him. She wasn't positioning herself. She wasn't impressed by the company name, the floor count, or the car. She was a civil rights attorney who took cases that didn't pay against people who did, and she won more than she statistically should have. And she laughed at things he didn't expect, and she went quiet at moments other people rushed to fill. She asked him questions nobody else thought to ask, not about the $88 billion or the company, about him, about the version of him that existed before the company had a name. He let her closer than he had let anyone in a decade. And the closer she got, the more exposed he felt. And exposure to a man like Marcus Cole had always felt indistinguishable from danger. So he did what he always did with danger. He removed it. 7 months before the collapse, over dinner, he said it cleanly and without drama. "I think I operate better alone, Zara. I always have." She looked at him for a long time, long enough that he felt the specific discomfort of being truly seen by someone who has decided not to flinch. Then she said, "I know you believe that." She picked up her jacket. She kissed him once, softly on the side of his face, like she was leaving something there on purpose. And she walked out. Marcus told himself it was the right call. He told himself it was cleaner this way. 7 months ago. She walked into the penthouse like empty rooms were perfectly ordinary things. No performance of concern. No slow survey of what the last 18 hours had done to the place, or to him. She moved through the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, and closed it. Found a kettle. Filled it. "You don't have to be here," Marcus said from across the room. "I know that. This is going to get worse before it gets better. The press already has the story. By morning it will be everywhere." Marcus. She turned and looked at him with the patience of a woman who has already made her decision and has no interest in relitigating it. "Stop trying to talk me out of the door I already walked through." He sat down at the kitchen counter. She put a mug in front of him, and then she didn't try to fix it. She didn't offer a plan, a speech, or a reason to feel better. She simply sat across from him and let the silence be what it needed to be. That was the thing about Zara. She never rushed. She understood that some moments couldn't be managed, only accompanied. Marcus looked at the mug for a long time. Then he looked at her. "How did you know where I was?" he asked. "Because I know you," she said. "You wouldn't go anywhere people would look. You'd go somewhere quiet, and you'd sit on the floor, and you'd try to think your way through something that can't be thought through in a single night." A pause. "You were on the floor, weren't you?" It wasn't a question. Something moved at the corner of his mouth, the ghost of something that hadn't been there in 18 hours. "Tell me about Dominic," she said. Marcus went still. Dominic Cross, his CFO.
11 years by his side. The man who knew the internal architecture of Coal Meridian better than anyone alive, who had been given access that most men never granted a single person, who had been, in every visible way, the second pillar of everything Marcus had built. "The investigation is focused on him," Marcus said carefully. "I know what the investigation says." Her voice was steady and direct. "I'm asking what you know." The question sat between them, and Marcus, who had not said this out loud to a single person, said it. It was him, all of it, and he built it to point at me. Zara did not look surprised, and that told Marcus something. "You know something," he said slowly. She set down her mug. "4 months before we ended," she said, "Dominic came to my office. He said he was concerned about you, about the decisions you were making. He had documents, real ones, some of them, arranged in a very specific way." She paused. "He wanted me to doubt you, completely and permanently. He wanted me gone from your life before everything fell apart, so that when it did, there would be no one." The room went quiet. "So what did you tell him?" Marcus asked. "I told him to get out of my office." Marcus looked at her. He looked at this woman who had absorbed a targeted, calculated attempt to destroy what they had, alone, without telling him, without using it as leverage or a reason to leave, or even a reason to stay. "So why didn't you tell me before?" "Because you would have handled it the way you handle everything," she said. "Efficiently. Alone. Without letting it actually reach you." She held his gaze. "I needed you to feel something, Marcus. Not manage it." He looked down at the mug, at the small thread of steam rising from it. "I told you I operated better alone," he said, quietly. "I know. I was wrong." The words came out before he'd finished deciding to say them. Zara was quiet for a moment. Then she reached across the counter, and her hand covered his. No speech, no condition, just warmth, steady and present, and entirely without an agenda. Marcus did not pull away. He sat there, in the wreckage of everything he had built, with her hand over his, and felt something he hadn't felt in longer than he could accurately measure. Not safe, not fixed, just not alone. Here is what Dominic Cross did not account for. He had spent years studying Marcus Cole. He knew how he thought, how he moved, where the blind spots were. He had been patient and methodical in the way that only people who hate quietly can be. He had accounted for the board, the legal team, the investors, the press. He had not accounted for Zara Bennett. Not because he didn't know about her. He knew exactly who she was, which was precisely why he had tried to remove her 4 months before the collapse. He needed the space around Marcus to be empty when everything fell. But Dominic had made the same mistake Marcus once made. He had underestimated what she was. She was not a variable. She was not a weakness to be neutralized. She was a civil rights attorney who had spent her entire career dismantling the careful structures of powerful men who believed they were untouchable. And Dominic, in his own visit to her office, had handed her something without realizing it. A date, a document reference, a specific framing that matched a financial instrument that had no legitimate reason to exist. She had kept it. She had kept it because she knew men like Dominic.
She had spent her whole career watching them build things designed to collapse on someone else. She kept it the way you keep an umbrella in a city that hasn't rained yet. She kept it, and she said nothing, and she waited. They worked through the night.
Marcus was at the table, Zara beside him, pulling threads from a financial picture that had been deliberately tangled over 2 years. She asked legal questions, not financial ones. Questions about intent, about the specific shape of structures designed to look like someone else's decisions. By 4 in the morning, the picture was complete. Within 3 hours, Marcus knew exactly who had destroyed him, exactly how it had been built, and exactly where the evidence lived that would prove it. He sat back and looked at the ceiling for a long moment. Then he looked at Zara. "You kept that document because you knew you might need it one day?" he said. "I kept it because I hoped I'd never need it." A pause. "But I know how men like him work."
"You protected me," Marcus said, "before I even knew I needed it. Before we even ended. You were protecting me while I was pushing you out the door." She didn't answer that directly, but the look on her face answered it completely. Dominic Cross was the kind of man who chose his office the way other men choose armour. Top floor, 3 walls of glass. The city was arranged below like something he had earned. Everything about the space communicated the same thing. Look where I stand. He turned from the window when they walked in together. Marcus first, Zara beside him. Not behind him, beside him. And something crossed Dominic's face. Fast, controlled, but not fast enough. "Marcus," he said, voice smooth and practiced.
"I've been thinking about you."
"I know," Marcus said. Dominic's eyes moved to Zara, and something shifted in them. The rapid, quiet recalculation of a man who realizes a piece he thought he had removed is still on the board. "Miss Bennett," his voice was perfectly level. "This is unexpected." "I don't think it is," she said. She placed a folder on his desk. 30 pages, transaction records, document references. A verbatim account of a conversation that had taken place in her office 4 months ago.
Time-stamped, signed, and notarized. Dominic looked at the folder. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. "You made one mistake," Marcus said. "You came to her. You handed her evidence, and then you waited for her to disappear from my life. And when she did, you assumed it worked. You built this entire thing on one foundation, that I had no one." He paused.
You were wrong. The silence in that room was complete. Dominic looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then, with the composure of a man who has prepared for many outcomes, he said, "You'll want a very good legal team." Zara looked at him. "He has one," she said. 3 months later, Marcus stood on the roof of the building that still had his name on it. The investigation had taken 4 weeks to redirect once the documentation was in the right hands. The charges, re-examined with what Zara had preserved, moved to where they belonged. Dominic was awaiting trial. The frozen accounts were released. The board reinstated Marcus with the particular wordless awkwardness of powerful men who have been publicly wronged. He had won. He stood on that roof in the early evening, the city below him, and he waited to feel what he thought he would feel. He expected triumph, the clean satisfaction of a restored empire, a name cleared, a life returned to its correct position. What he felt instead was a kitchen counter at 4 in the morning, a mug of tea, a hand covering his in the dark. He heard the door behind him open. Zara stepped out. She'd been inside, finishing a call. She came to stand beside him, looking out at the same city.
"How does it feel?" she asked. He thought about it honestly. "Different from what I expected." "Different how?" "Like the thing I got back isn't the most important thing I got back." She turned to look at him. He looked at her. "I told you once that I operated better alone," he said. "I've thought about that a lot these past 3 months. About why I believed it. About what it costs." He paused. "I think I was afraid of needing someone, of what it would mean if I admitted that I did."
And I think Dominic saw that. I think he built everything around it. My belief that I needed no one was the only door he needed. "It was," she said quietly, "and I handed it to him myself. You didn't know. I should have." He held her gaze. "You were right there, showing me what it looked like when someone stays, and I called it something dangerous because the alternative scared me more than losing everything." The city moved below them, continuous and alive and indifferent in the way cities always are. "I'm not going to tell you it's fine," Zara said. "The things you said, the way you let me walk out. I know. But I want to tell you something about that night I showed up." She reached up and touched his face, steady and warm and without condition. "I wasn't there because I'd gotten over it. I wasn't there because I decided it didn't matter." He waited. "I was there," she said, "because I know who you are, underneath everything you built, and I was not going to let one man's greed take that from you, and I was not going to let your own fear finish what he started." The last light of the evening moved across her face. "You came back?" he said. "Yes, I came back." "Why?" She looked at him the same way she had always looked at him, past the surface, past the name and the floor count and the empire, into whatever was underneath all of it. "Because some people," she said softly, "are worth the rain." If this story reached something in you, if you know what it feels like to build everything and still feel like something essential is missing, then you already understand what Marcus finally learned. The most valuable thing in your life is not what you built. It is who stays when what you built is gone. Do us a favor and hit the subscribe button right now so you never miss a story. Leave a like, share this with someone who needs to hear it. And in the comments, I want to know, have you ever had someone show up for you when everyone else left? Tell me about it. I read every single one. See you in the next story.